So yeah, so the Ripples of Success interview series is our opportunity to chat with people that have actually make a difference with what they do, right? And pull into that. And having been to two of your shows and paid attention to what else is going on in your world a little bit, I thought this would be a great opportunity. I think you make a great addition to our series for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. It's I was taken aback only because it's been a year and a half, or almost 2 years of this pandemic. It's hard to feel like a successful musician in this pandemic. So I'm flattered that you would want me for a Ripples of Success interview.
That's great. Well, what's really interesting, you're talking about feeling like a success right now. And that is so common for so many people right now, because whatever idea they had of success, for the most part, they weren't able to measure up to when suddenly the whole world changes around them.
Yeah.
But one question I have for you is that while you're actually performing and you get in front of an audience, how do you measure success then? How do you know whether or not you've had a successful event?
By the level of engagement with the audience. As you saw, I love putting on a very interactive show. And I've said this to people many times. I've noticed two different levels of magic, if you will, at my shows. The first level is when total strangers start interacting with me and exchanging playful comments.
Yeah.
Which is so much fun, right? It makes it more fun for me, and I notice it makes it more fun for the audience as well, right? Because they can feel as part of the show. But the second level, which really lets me know we're having a great time, is when total strangers start exchanging comments with each other. And I've seen that happen time and time again. And it just creates such a great energy in the room. So for me, that's the level of success. That's how I measure my a successful show. And like any other business, if I don't provide a good product, no one's going to call me. So because my bread and butter is dependent upon the shows, I'm a full-time musician. I really strive to put on a great show and that people can have a lot of fun at, so that word of mouth spreads, and then I get calls. Right, and that's what I find happens quite often. People will come to me after a show and ask me how much I charge for a private event, and am I available for such and such a date? So yeah, that's how I measure success. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did, absolutely, because I think it's important for our listeners to understand that we might have one measure of success that is over the last, whatever their fiscal year is, and like you said, it doesn't necessarily the last year have met how you consider yourself to be a successful musician, but there are other ways to look at how you measure success. Yeah. It's important to consider all of them. One of my big things is research and study into leadership. And having been in your audience twice, I am very appreciative of the amount of leadership that you show. And you've actually mentioned it. There are a lot of people that get in front of a room and they're unwilling to share the control in the room. You never let it go. You're always the leader, everybody, but you do encourage people to talk to each other, and people can heckle you and you give it back, but you had never put them down, right?
Yeah,
like you engage with them in a way that says, I'm still leading this, but yes, you can come in and play, and this is how you can play.
I love the way you put that. I never really saw it that way.
Oh, well, I noticed it, right? Like I teach people how to work from the stage. How to incorporate every single thing that happens in a way that allows it to still be your room, right? Like when my husband fell off his chair, you say, see, I blew you right over. Like you incorporate, right? And I'm like, that's a skill. That's a skill. You know how to do that. And I think that's where your comfort comes from. And you're so comfortable at the front, and you're doing something so engaging that other people feel safe because of that. Like your flexibility allows that.
Thank you. I can identify with that. You reminded me of a particular moment. Well, this is years ago. I was setting up. It was a small room, about 30 people. As a restaurant. I was setting up, and way in the corner, I could see two guys looking at my request book, and they're saying like, he should start with something like "Inagata da vida," right? So 20 minutes later, it's in my head, and 20 minutes later, I get up to the mic and I go, "Hello, everyone. And I'm going to start the show with Inagata da vida." These two guys just almost fell off their chairs laughing, right? You reminded me of that particular moment when you commented on how I notice and try to incorporate everything that happens in the room. And yeah, it's kind of like I've seen entertainers, like for me, a really good entertainer is somebody who can do that. Like I've seen people get up on stage in front of a mic and something big happens in the room and they try to pretend like it never happened. And it's just, it's awkward. It's like, didn't you notice? Right?
Well, now you're competing with whatever happened.
Yeah.
If you don't invite the thread in, if you don't weave it into what's happening, now you're competing with it.
Yes. And another thing that I like to do is, first of all, talk a lot about my shows. But because they're just so much fun. But the second thing is every once in a while, someone will make a request. Not every once in a while, all the time.
I was going to say that's how your show is designed.
My shows are peppered with requests. But every once in a while, someone will get up and leave. Someone else who didn't make the request will get up and leave. So I will notice that and I'll stop the song. If I haven't gotten too far into it, I'll stop the song and I'll say, well, obviously so-and-so doesn't like this kind of music. And they turn around like it's pretty funny, right? Or the person who makes the request, for some reason, gets up in the middle of the song and needs to go to the bathroom. And in that case, I'll stop the song and go, hey, you just made a request. Where are you going? Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I love it. So how did you find that this was part of your personality, the flexibility that you have, or is it something that you needed to grow into?
I think that's a very good question. I do have a rather irreverent sense of humor. I think the spark was when I became the lead singer for a rock dance band that performed in the Persian Gulf. Soldiers. We were flown over and we were there for 5 months, me and 4 other Humber College music students. And when we were there, after 1 week, the entertainment director on the ship, it was a passenger ship that was chartered by the US military to act as a floating hotel for all the soldiers so they could have rest and recreation on board for 3 days. And so the entertainment director for the ship, the Cunard Princess, pulled us into his office and said, it is so obvious you guys never played together before. True, because we only banded together like 2 weeks before the gig. Wow. To learn 50 songs in the basement of the drummer's house. And so we'd never really played together before. So the entertainment director noticed that. He said, you guys have never played together before. You suck. And we're sending you back home in a week if you guys don't get your act together and get people on the dance floor. That was a wake-up moment.
Wow.
Like where suddenly we realized our job. And so we had a meeting, we put up set lists, and then we just on the very last day, even every day, the entertainment director would be standing off to the side watching us perform and watching the dance floor to see if anybody would be on it. And happy to say that by the 7th day, by the end of the week, we convinced them that we got our act together and people were dancing. And so that was a real spark for me to understand what it means to. It reminded me a lot of something I've heard John Lennon say when he described the Beatles' early days in Hamburg. If you're familiar with that phase in their music careers, where the owner of the club would yell at them, "Mach Schau," which means make a show, make a show. And there was something about reading John Lennon describing that really clicked for me. And then I understood what what that means. The other thing too, when I was performing with those four other members of the band, we did everything and anything we could to have fun on stage, because we were playing the same songs over and over and over again, night after night after night. Still doing them well, I may add. So yeah, to relieve the repetition, the repetitiveness of the.
Close enough.
I'll just make up words as I go along.
Works for me.
We did anything and everything. One time we hung toilet paper from the low ceiling and just stretched it out all over the stage. It was pretty funny. So once the band was over and our gig was over and I went solo, suddenly I had nobody to play with on stage. And I think it was a natural thing for me to just kind of reach out to the audience to see if I could have fun there, right? With
maracas and tambourines and
yeah.
Love it. I love it. That's a great story. It's there does need to be this crystallizing moment for any entrepreneur, whether it's music or anybody doing what they're doing, to have the focus about what's important, right? Where does my focus need to be? And it sounds like that was an incredible crystallizing moment for you, that and to figure out what you love about what you do, right? And what's the necessary components in order for you to do that. One of the things we do here at TRIAD is that we've decided, it's one of the reasons the business exists, is because Karen and Jackie and I decided that we wanted to have a successful business that was contained inside our successful life. That because too often business becomes like everything, and then you just feel like you're slogging along. So as you have the piece you do, and I know music, other musicians who music tends to be everywhere in their world, what else do you put into your world that allows you to even show up more resilient and available for your audiences? What else sort of fills out your life?
That's a great question. You've done this before, haven't you?
Once or twice.
That's a great question. One of the things that I have been learning in this relationship with my lady, and I think you know her. She's very good friends with Karen Kovacs.
Yeah.
Kara. One of the early things that I had to learn was, when we first dated and then when I moved in, she had a 6-7-year-old daughter in her life. And no surprise, I mean, I'm an entertainer. And for me, I love being the center of attention. And I guess that's needed, that's a necessity if you're going to stand up in front of a room full of people and say, I'm going to entertain you. You kind of got to be full of yourself in some measure.
Yep.
But one of the things that I learned very early on with my lady and her daughter was, it's not always about me. I had to learn how to turn it off. I had to learn how to turn off the entertainer to make room for other people, such as her daughter, because 7-year-olds don't care if I get a standing ovation on the weekends. It's all about, are we having fun? Are you and I having fun now, right?
Yeah.
So that was a nice pulling me out of that entertainer and that constant thing that I do all the time. That's one aspect. The other one is very close friends that I get to drop that facade or that face. And yeah, so nourishing. So you got to find a balance between the entertainer, the work, and who I am. I mean, now having said that, I don't mean to come across as like the entertainer is not me. It is me.
Yes.
It's a part of me. And
right.
It's a part of me that I bring forward to my shows to great effect. And people have said, it's so obvious you have a great time up there. And I like to joke back. I say, really? You noticed? I try to hide it.
Yes.
I've done a good job.
No, it's good. It's important. There are, I think that it's important that we do have roles in our life. that feed us like as much energy as we give to it. That's very reciprocal, and making sure we also have fully developed other roles in our life, so we get a chance to grow in lots of different ways.
Yeah,
Now,
it brings that balance. Yeah, which I find very, very critical. If I may, of course I may. You're interviewing me. I can say whatever I want.
absolutely.
Um, the so after a very, very intense summer, pre-pandemic, um, I'm burned out. The all the shows, and not only that, but I also am blessed in that I get to be the musician on board a small 200 passenger ship in the Arctic every year, which are incredible amounts of fun. The trips are amazing. I get to meet people I would never have an opportunity to meet in my everyday life. So they are, and I miss them so much because we haven't done that for 2 years, and I look so forward to the next one. But the point I'm trying to make is that it is a very intense social environment being on the ship. And whenever I step out of my cabin, I am on the clock.
Right.
So, right. I love it. It sure beats sitting behind a desk day after day after day. And at the same time, it's draining.
Yeah.
And so by the end of that summer, what I do is I go on a canoe trip with a camping buddy of mine for 25 years now. We do it every year, where we paddle in to the interior, usually Killarney Provincial Park. We paddle in for about an hour, 2 hours, set up a campsite, and we sit beside a lake and do sweet nothing for a week. No agenda, no plans, no cell signal, nothing. We just lay in a hammock and watch the clouds go by, read, and I always know I have had a great, that I got what I came for when I get bored.
Right.
Because when I get bored, then I know I'm ready to come back. And that's what I'm talking about, the balance, right? It's like, yeah, that intense work environment, which I love so much.
Yes.
At the same time, I need to refresh Thomas Kovacs, the person, not the entertainer. And when I come back from those trips, I am just raring to go back and do what I recharge my batteries, so to speak.
I love it. Yeah, there needs to be this both expansion and contraction, right? Like our life needs to breathe, our business needs to breathe the way we do. And you do that, right? Like you're breathing out for the whole summer, and then you need that time to breathe in and replenish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this interview series is about the ripples to success. Tell me a little bit about some of your favorite things that people have said to you that you've made a difference. When people have said to you, this is what your you entertaining did for me. Like, what's some of the favorite things people have told you?
Okay. Yeah, now I'm getting some memories back. Wow, I can feel like almost a tear coming. So I was performing at this one show. There was a lady sitting in the front row, and of course, as you've seen, I get requests coming at me, right? And I can't do them all in the same time. So there's one lady sitting in front of me, and she was kind of enjoying the show. I could tell, she was applauding, and she made a request, and I didn't, it slipped. So 2 or 3 songs later, she's like, "Where's my request?" I said, "Oh, okay." And then again, something else happened, and I just veered off elsewhere, and I totally missed her request. And like 2 or 3 songs later, now she's sitting there going, "I want my request." And I, as an aside, I should say this: if I ever notice myself feeling irritated by somebody in the audience, I would never ever dare joke about it, because I know that the edge will be, people will smell the edge no matter how I deliver, right? Yeah. But in this particular instance, I just felt like I really liked her, and I looked at her and I did my impression of a 10-year-old. where's my request? The whole place just laughed out loud, and she laughed too, only because I liked her. Like, it wasn't a put down, as you mentioned earlier. It wasn't a put down. It was, we're having fun with what's happening in the moment.
Yeah.
So after the show, everyone had left, and the host of the show came up to me and said, you know that lady that you joked with about the request? I said, yeah. She says, she lost her husband like 6 months ago, like 25, 30 years. That's the first time we saw her laugh since then. Wow. So that was one of the most prominent ones. Another one was, I was playing at a small restaurant to like 30 people, and in walked this woman with her husband, probably early 40s. And she had her parents with her. And as she's walking in and I'm setting up, she says, hey, I saw your show a few weeks ago with my girlfriends, and now I'm bringing my husband in because we're celebrating our anniversary. Cool. We sit down, they're right in front of me. And I asked the husband, like, shortly into the show, I said, hey, would you like to come up and sing a love song to your lady for your anniversary? And he's like, nah, I need a few more drinks. Okay. I turned that into a running joke. So 3 or 4 songs. Okay, let's check in with Paul. I don't know. Let's check in with Paul and see if he's had enough to drink. And he'd be like, not yet. Okay. So again, 20 minutes later, let's check in with Paul, see if he's had enough to drink yet. It's a great running gag. So eventually he did come up and sing. And he sang this really, I can't remember what he sang. This is so many years ago. But he didn't have a voice, but man, he felt it. Like, it was heartfelt. And I looked at his wife, and she's bawling. She's holding the camera, videotaping him, and of course the whole place. He just brought the house down, right? And it was a wonderful, wonderful moment. I think you also noticed I give out a best guest entertainer trophy at the end of every show.
Yeah.
Needless to say, he won.
Yeah.
Moments like that, I really, really love, where I can facilitate somebody coming out of their shell. And you're right, they need to feel safe. And if I put people down, they're not going to feel safe, right?
No.
I tell a lot of people when they say, I can't sing, I say, I'm not looking for good, I'm looking for fun.
Yeah.
I've seen people come up who can't sing worth a note, but they have fun up there. And it just, when you're having fun on stage, the audience will be with you, right?
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Thomas. This has been amazing. I've enjoyed having some time to you all by myself. I normally have to share you with a crowd. So, so thank you so much for coming. Do you have any last minute words for people that are out there just looking to forge ahead in the world?
You gotta love what you do. When I worked in the IT field at a large Canadian corporation, I really enjoyed my job. It was stimulating. I was meeting great people. And I learned something new every day, and I have a very curious mind, so I just love, like, oh, how do you do that? How do you do that? Right? At the same time, the music was pulling at my heart like something fierce, and I knew that I got to do this, or I will regret it. So the point I'm trying to make is, I didn't leave the corporate world with a screw you attitude, because that gets you nowhere. Right. It was what the overriding thing was, the love for the music. Because if you leave with hate in your heart, so if I may, if I left with hate in my heart towards the corporate world, and that would have poisoned, right, my going into music full time. So I left on very, very good terms with the corporate world. In fact, I had a pretty good relationship with one of the vice presidents in the company. Very personable, very easy to approach. And I sat down in his office and I told him what I planned to do, and I just wanted his input. And he said, Tom, if you'll remember, I almost died of a heart attack last summer. So you never know. So you do what you got to do. So I did leave. The other strong thing about loving what you do is what happens is any major setbacks if you love what you do, any setbacks in that don't appear as mountains, they only appear as little bumps in the road.
Right.
For instance, my vocal cords suffered injury in 2016 because I was singing full time, and I had polyps on my vocal cords, and I had to have surgery. There was no way around it. So I had the surgery, and I couldn't talk for 3 days, not a peep. What did I do? I went on a solo canoe trip where I couldn't talk, and and then I slowly came to educate myself through books and through an occasional consultation with vocal coaches to learn proper vocal techniques so I wouldn't injure my cords again.
Nice.
That's huge, especially at my age, which was 56 at the time. And I managed to come back from it. And now looking back, I realize if I didn't love what I do, I think it would have been done.
Right.
I would have been. But because I love what I do, it just appeared like a small little bump, like, oh, I gotta get this done. Simple.
It seemed like a nudge to get what you needed for longevity.
Yes. And one of the most inspiring moments in terms of whether I could still do this or not was my Kara bought tickets for her and I to go see Bobby McFerrin. And at the time, I think he was 70 years old. And at the time, before I went to see the show, I was filled with, how much longer can I do this?
Right.
And when I saw him perform at 70, it just blew me away. Like, wow, I still got quite a few years to do this.
Bring it on.
I should add this little tidbit about being an entertainer and putting on a show and connecting with the audience. I couldn't believe when we saw Bobby McFerrin, he did the first song, and then the venue, I think it was Roy Thompson Hall, then the venue let people in, right? The latecomers. And they all came in, and Bobby McFerrin stood on stage and just glared at all the latecomers. I mean, in a playful way, right? Yeah. And then some people sit down and he goes, "Where were you?" I died laughing because that's what I do. So, he really connected with the audience, and he really connected with me because I do that too. And so that added to the inspiration.
You got to see that. For me, there's nothing cooler than seeing the art behind the effect. Like,
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
It's kind of like game recognizes game, right? You saw what he was doing, so you understood what was happening, so yeah. It actually even increased the effect for you.
Yes,
the appreciation for it because you knew what he was doing, right? You go
on the receiving end of that.
Yes,
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. When you know how it works with great art that way, it's just a deeper appreciation. It doesn't spoil it; it intensifies it.
That guy knows what he's doing.
Exactly. Thank you, Thomas. I hopefully get a chance to chat with you soon.
Thank you.